Hello and welcome to the Aggression Sessions video series with me, Daniel Rock 08, as I take you through every episode of Raw, SmackDown, and pay-per-view through the Ruthless Aggression era. And tonight is episode 1, the WWF 2002 Draft. Now, the brand extension was one of those things that was very much necessary to happen in WWF because you had this huge influx of talent. You had this huge influx of talent from WCW, from ECW, and you already had a huge roster in WWF. So how is a guy like Edge or Raven or Test, how are those guys supposed to elevate their careers and become top guys when they have to compete with so much other talent, not just for Raw, but also SmackDown as well? Because you had two shows, and you're going to have Rock and Austin on both shows. That's the way it was. You had your storyline, you had your shows be written on Raw, and they would follow those storylines up on SmackDown. So how is a guy supposed to become big stars with this? Well, you have the brand extension. Now, what is the brand extension going to look like? How is that going to look like? How is it going to feel? What's it going to feel like? Are we going to have 2 WrestleManias? Are we going to have 2 Royal Rumble matches? Are we going to have 2 world champions? Are we going to have double the live events? Are the shows truly separate? Are they never going to touch? Well, according to Bruce Pritchard, a lot of people had no idea what it's going to be like because Vince McMahon changed the rules and broke them as it followed, as it suited him. There were going to be just 1 WrestleMania, 1 Royal Rumble, and it was supposed to be 16 pay-per-views, 6 for Raw, 6 for SmackDown, and you had your 4 normal shows. But when you really break down, and they're never supposed to touch, how is the Royal Rumble match going to work? Well, goddamn, pal, of course they're going to touch in the Royal Rumble match. That's the one time they can. Okay. What about the world champions? We're going to have 1 world champion. How are we going to determine the number 1 contender? Well, I guess we can just have triple threat matches. There's a lot of problems with that stuff. And as you see in the draft, it already began. Because in the draft, there are a couple of notable exceptions and a lot of people who are exempt from the draft. Triple H, your undisputed champion, is exempt, which makes a lot of sense. He's going to be on Raw and SmackDown. But there is an Undisputed Championship triple threat match taking place on Raw for the draft. It involves Triple H, Chris Jericho, and Stephanie McMahon, who is the first and, to my knowledge, only woman to compete in a WWE Championship match. These 3 are all exempt from the draft. Stone Cold Steve Austin is, for whatever reason, exempt from the draft. Now, the reason behind, kayfabe reason why, is because, and this is really stupid, because it makes no sense. The kayfabe reason is because Stone Cold Steve Austin had it in his contract that he would be a free agent. So somehow, some way, Stone Cold Steve Austin can forward think. He has psychological powers. He could see into the future. He had the foresight to have it in his contract that if there was a draft, when there was no draft to be spoken of, but if there were to be a draft, he cannot be drafted to Raw or SmackDown. He gets to decide, which makes no fucking sense whatsoever. How is Stone Cold supposed to know that there's a draft when there is no draft when he did his contract? What? There's going to be a draft? Well, I can't be drafted, pal. What? Goddamn, son. What? So, but of course he's going to go to Raw. Well, goddamn, pal. Of course he's going to go to Raw. Why wouldn't he be? Well, then just draft his ass to Raw. No, he can't be in the draft because it does not make sense for Stone Cold's character. Well, what about The Rock? Well, of course he's going to go to SmackDown. It's his show. Well, wouldn't The Rock also in his contract not be drafted too? None of that shit makes sense. But anyways, go listen to the Something to Wrestle With podcast on the draft. It's a whole lot of confusion. So anyways, the brand extension is something that needed to happen. So let's talk about the draft. The 2002 WWF Draft would take place on March 25th, 2002 episode of Raw. Now, of course, there was a lot of matches, not just the Undisputed title match, but there's a lot of matches, and most of them only have 2 minutes of duration. So they're not really worth talking about. The first match is Taz versus Mr. Perfect, and Taz won. It's all about the picks. It's all about the encounter between Ric Flair and Vince McMahon. So Vince McMahon, because he won a coin toss, air quotes, he gets to go first. He comes out and he picks The Rock. And to make it feel like the NFL draft or the NBA draft, they have stats, they have like a little banner, they cut back and forth, they show you reactions. Now apparently, most of the talent had no idea where they were going to go, which show they were going to go. They had to go on WWF.com to find out. Yeah, that's right. They had to go on WWF.com in 2002 to find out. And when I talk about Chris Jericho here in a bit, it's one weird story. So anyways, The Rock is the first one drafted. And Vince McMahon tells him, well, goddamn, pal, you cannot say Rudy Poo, candy ass, and it doesn't matter. Because quite honestly, Rock, it does matter. I made you. I made Hulk Hogan. I made the WWF. And then The Rock stands there and he says, you did not make The Rock. The Rock's parents' genitalia did not make The Rock. The people made The Rock. And every time you come on stage, that's what she said, every time you come on stage, the left side's going to say, you are, and the right side's going to say, an asshole. And just right on cue, because he's The Rock, because he's the great one, the crowd literally goes with it. You are an asshole. You are an asshole. And that's what every time Vince McMahon comes out throughout the entire episode of Raw, he gets the you are an asshole chant. By the way, the crowd in Penn State is electrifying. The participation is incredible. Of course, you get the what chants. Of course, you get the you are an asshole and the na goodbye later on. Again, there are a few matches here. None of them matter. I'm not going to really talk about the matches. The next pick, Ric Flair comes on stage and he announces The Undertaker. And The Undertaker is pissed because he was promised by Vince McMahon that he would be number one. That he would be picked by Vince McMahon. And Vince McMahon has no idea what Ric Flair is thinking. Why did he pick The Undertaker? And Undertaker makes it very well known that Vince McMahon better not fuck up because The Undertaker will make him pay for it. Kurt Angle, his feelings are hurt. How can you possibly draft The Rock over me? I'm an Olympic gold medalist. I should have been number one. And so he persuades Vince McMahon to draft Kurt Angle because he tells Ric Flair he's not going to pick the NWO next. No, he's going to pick Kurt Angle because I'm a champion. I'm an Olympian champion. So Vince McMahon picks Kurt Angle. And what does Ric Flair do? He goes and picks the New World Order. Now, side note here, I got to tell you something. This does not make sense. Now, every single person is drafted separately. However, somehow, some way, the NWO get to be chosen as one entity. That would be like if the NFL, let's say the Dallas Cowboys, they go on stage and they select, we, the Dallas Cowboys, have selected the entire offensive line team of the Iowa Hawkeyes. That would never happen. That is complete, utter bullcrap. It's not fair. Well, goddamn, pal. Of course Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. One goes, the other must follow. Of course they go together. Can't just pick an entire faction. Well, goddamn, pal. Yeah, he can. Made sense to him, I guess. So Ric Flair gets the entire NWO. And Vince McMahon's livid. He knew he was going to pick the NWO. And Kurt Angle, basically, I love Kurt Angle in this episode because he's just using Vince McMahon to get what he wants, and I love him so much. He then tells Vince McMahon that there's a man waiting in the wings. He is injured, and he's coming back, and he will be back very soon, better, stronger than ever. And that is Chris Benoit. So Vince McMahon then drafts Chris Benoit. Now, here's the weird thing. Chris Benoit, when he comes back, he goes to Raw. Well, goddamn, pal, they're going to need him. And they're not going to remember him being drafted to SmackDown. But he was drafted to SmackDown. Well, they need him on Raw. Again, another really, really screwed up thing going on. More worthless matches. I believe you had... it doesn't really matter what the matches are. Next up, Ric Flair comes out. And so the NWO are interrogating Ric Flair. They say that we're not going to listen to you. And so on and so forth. And Ric Flair says he's going to pick Kane. So finally a sensible pick. Booker T and Christian defeated Edge and DDP. That was a notable match I kind of just skimmed over. As I said, most of these matches don't matter. Who cares? Vince McMahon picks Hulk Hogan. And there will be a handicap match between The Rock, Hulk Hogan, and the NWO. Ric Flair then picks the Intercontinental Champion, Rob Van Dam. And Vince is livid because he wants the Intercontinental Championship. And Kurt Angle's right there, and he tells him, I can get you your Intercontinental Championship. Why don't you just sanction a match between me and RVD, and I'll get you that Intercontinental title, Vince. And Vince says, well, maybe you should have been the number one pick, and I will do so. So that's what we're going to get. Kurt Angle versus Rob Van Dam for the Intercontinental Championship. Vince then picks Billy and Chuck for the tag team. The tag team championships will go to SmackDown as he picked Billy and Chuck. As I said, apparently Billy and Chuck get to be picked together. Then we have rapid fire draft picks. Ric Flair picks Booker T. Vince picks Edge. I don't know why Ric Flair would pick Booker T over Edge when Edge won at WrestleMania, but whatever. Ric Flair then picks Big Show, and Vince then picks Rikishi. Ric Flair makes a big laugh here as he says, well, maybe we'll see your big face in his big ass once again. Then we have that handicap match between The Rock, Hulk Hogan, and the NWO, which ends in a schmoz when Kane comes out and we are going to get a 6-man tag match on SmackDown. Remember, the draft does not take in effect until April 1st. So anyways, that whole segment with Kane and the Canaanites with The Rock and Hulk Hogan is one of my favorite segments of all time. It is just straight up hilarious. And what happens next is another more controversial picks, more picks that just does not make sense. As Ric Flair picks Bubba Ray Dudley, Vince then counters him with Devon. Because we're going to do Reverend Devon, and I cannot wait for Reverend Devon. But this does not make sense. Why does the NWO get picked together? Why does Billy and Chuck get picked together? But the Dudley Boys have to be separate. Well, goddamn, pal, no one said we could ever separate the tag teams. But what about the NWO? Well, they have to be together. Well, one follows, the other must... One lead, the other must follow. This did not make sense. Why does the NWO get to stay together? Why does Billy and Chuck get to stay together? But the Dudleys, they have to be separate. And the APA will also be separate as Bradshaw goes to Raw and Farouk goes to SmackDown in the lottery. Again, doesn't make sense, doesn't live for fun. Your brain gets smart, but your head gets dumb. The Intercontinental Championship is next, and it's a non-finish. Rob Van Dam retained his title. William Regal comes out to defend his European title against Rikishi. That too also doesn't take place when Brock Lesnar comes out and F5s the crap out of Rikishi. Vince McMahon comes out and says, "That man right there is going to be the future of SmackDown, goddamn pal. He's coming to SmackDown." Ric Flair comes out and says, "It's not your pick." "Oh, you can have 2 for 1. "Not your pick. I pick Brock Lesnar." Vince then picks Mark Henry. Ric Flair then counters him with the European champion William Regal. Now that's the Intercontinental and European Championships going to Raw. William Regal's not happy. Vince McMahon then picks, for his last pick for SmackDown, Maven, the Hardcore Champion. And Maven's reaction is just funny as hell. He looks like a deer in headlights. It's really funny. Go out of your way and watch his reaction. As I said, most people did not know where they were going to lie, where they were going to go. Rock knew. Hogan knew, of course. But that's basically it. And the final draft pick was Lita to Raw. And Vince McMahon kind of makes fun of Ric Flair. Say, "You're going to pick a woman?" "Well, of course, because you're a misogynistic pig." I mean, 2 months later, he would expose himself to a flight attendant on the plane ride to hell. So, not far from it there, Vince. But anyways. So, there you have it. And that's the end of the draft on TV. Our Undisputed Championship match, the main event, the Triple Threat match. Triple H, your Undisputed Champion, defended successfully against Chris Jericho and Stephanie. Now, if Stephanie McMahon were pinned, she would have to leave the WWE. Triple H hits a spinebuster on Stephanie. Na-na-na-na, hey, goodbye, Stephanie McMahon. For about 3 months, as she comes back later on to be the SmackDown General Manager. I mean, she was already gone from the Invasion, from Survivor Series, but then she came back, and then she was gone again. But she came back, Stephanie coming and going faster than you can say, "Stephanie, please don't go." Maybe there is something true about what Chris Jericho says. Now, let's talk about where everybody lies. To SmackDown, we have The Rock, Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, who, by the way, when he comes back to Raw, he goes to Raw. Hulk Hogan, Billy and Chuck, the tag team champions, Edge, Rikishi, Devon Dudley, Mark Henry, and Maven, the Hardcore Champion, which, by the way, Maven loses his Hardcore title to Raven, who is on Raw, so the Hardcore Championship goes to Raw when we take into effect. To Raw, we get The Undertaker, the entire NWO, Kane, Rob Van Dam, your Intercontinental Champion, Booker T, The Big Show, Bubba Ray Dudley, Brock Lesnar, along with Paul Heyman, the European Champion, William Regal, and Lita. So all your secondary championships are going to be on Raw. Your tag team champions are going to be on SmackDown. Now, here's the question. Does that mean we have tag teams on Raw? No, of course we're going to have tag team matches on Raw. but your tag team championships are on SmackDown. Well, SmackDown can be the tag team championship show. Okay, Vince. What about the Hardy Boys? Speaking of the Hardy Boys got lucky and they were drafted together to Raw. So, your tag team championships are going to be exclusive to SmackDown. But your most popular tag team is going to Raw. And all the other tag teams were split up. Didn't make sense, didn't live for fun. Your brain gets smart, but your head gets dumb. Goddamn, pal. Now, let's talk about the lottery and where this is where it really hits the fan. Now comes the fun part. So these wrestlers, they have no idea where they're going to go. They have to go on WWF.com to find out. In 2002, broadband internet. SmackDown, they get these people. SmackDown gets Billy Kidman to Jerry, who is the Cruiserweight Champion. Chris Jericho fell all the way down to 25th. Speaking of Chris Jericho, here's his story. I knew I wasn't going to win the Undisputed Championship, but nobody would tell me what show I was going to end up on. When I asked Brian Go Wars, he told me I would have to wait until they posted the complete draft results on WWF.com after the show. It was the most ridiculous thing ever, and to make matters worse, I had to start driving as soon as I was finished, and had no access to a computer, because this is 2002, and there is no such thing as smartphones yet. So I was forced to call Lenny in Vancouver to find out where I was going to end up. In essence, I found out my fate the same time as all of you did. I want to remind everybody, Chris Jericho was your former Undisputed Champion. He main evented WrestleMania 8x8. He had to find out the same way that you all found out. On broadband internet. This fucking company. Also to SmackDown, Ivory, Albert, The Hurricane, Al Snow, Lance Storm, Diamond Dallas Page, who would unfortunately get injured and would never wrestle again for the longest time, Tori Wilson, Scotty 2 Hottie, Stacy Keibler, Christian falls all the way to 45th, Test falls to 47 for some reason, Farouk, Taz, Hardcore Holly, Val Venus, and last but not least, Perry Saturn. Then, to Raw, we have Bradshaw, Steven Richards, Matt Hardy, Raven, Jeff Hardy. So, the Hardy Boys and Team Extreme, they got lucky. Even though they were drafted separate, they ended up on the same show, Raw, where the tag team titles are on SmackDown. Raven, who would beat Maven for the Hardcore title. Mr. Perfect, Spike Dudley, D'Lo Brown, Sean Stasiak, Terry Reynolds, Jacqueline, Goldust, Trish Stratus, who falls all the way down to 46th. Just Incredible, the Big Boss Man, who would be out of the company anyways. Tommy Dreamer, Crash Holly, who would also be leaving the company very soon, and Mighty Molly. And there you have it. Now, we would eventually get Triple H versus Hulk Hogan at Backlash. Triple H would go to SmackDown, but when he's Undisputed Champion, he would mostly be on Raw. And then there's Jazz, who is on Raw and SmackDown. And then there's the free agent Stone Cold Steve Austin, which we will find out where he goes April 1st when the draft officially takes effect. So there you have it. The WWF Draft of 2002. As you see, a whole lot of bullshit going on. The NWO being drafted together. Billy and Chuck, the tag team champions, being drafted together. You have tag teams being separated. The tag team titles are on SmackDown, but your most popular tag team is going to be on Raw, and all the other tag teams are separated. Maven, your hardcore champion, loses the title to Raven, to Raw. And Chris Jericho did not know, even though he was undisputed champion and main event in WrestleMania. Just crazy crap. Anyways, that was the 2002 WWF Draft, something that was very much necessary to happen. And as you see, as the brand extension continues, a lot of the mid-carders benefited. Now, I'm going to ask you this question as we move forward. Who benefited the most out of the draft, out of the brand extension? For me personally, Edge. Nobody benefited more from this brand extension than Edge did. And as you see in the following months and years as I continue on with this series, Edge becomes a big time player throughout the Ruthless Aggression era. Anyways, I'm Daniel Rock 08, and coming up in episode 2 is the official effectiveness of the 2002 brand extension. April 1st, 2002 episode of Raw, and the April 4th episode of SmackDown. I'm Daniel Rock 08, and I'll see you until next time.